the other sheet. And I'd like to propose, as the council expenses currently exceed income, that we postpone hiring of this junior and review that for the 2025-26 budget, when quarries will hopefully be in action and income from that will be a bit clearer with regard to any expenses that also need to come in. And there'll be a clearer idea of any commitments to supporting Low Ackworth Community Centre, community with a centre.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Would any other councillors like to comment? And also thank you for that contribution, Susie. Okay, so
we were aware when we were discussing the budget, of the situation with regard to the reserves, and very mindful that you can't build a budget around continuing eating to the reserves, which is why specific projects and expenditure that are allocated, for which the budget asks for reserves to be allocated, are one-off spends. So the setting up of, I can't remember them all, but the setting up of the new Quarries Community Centre, new roof on this building, we hope. I can't remember what the other ones are. Resurfacing to the car park out the back. Things like that. And again, we were very aware that a sum of money is being taken from reserves and to balance this budget, and the intention must be for all of us to monitor the spending very closely during this coming year, because I think for a number of reasons, I think that the precept's has been set low or not increased in previous years, mindful of the rampant inflation, cost of living increases, etc., and trying not to put additional burden onto the precept payers, the rate payers in Ackworth, and which is why we went for a fairly modest increase this year, but mindful that we do need to monitor very carefully through this year, and may have to make additional adjustments at the end of this year into 25-26. And as far as the staffing costs, I may be wrong, but I thought we had budgeted for certainly the office junior, the additional member of staff, has been through this council and has been approved. That's already been approved. The project manager, that's also been through this parish council and included in minutes and has been approved. So that's all. They're already approved, and so to change that sort of midstream would have quite significant consequences for the services we can offer. And my thought, I'm much more interested in the parish council being outward looking, offering services to the people who live here, rather than having to spend hours and hours and hours and hours of staff time, as it's happening at the moment, responding to time-consuming issues raised by a small number of people. People have the right to raise issues, but I think it's totally disproportionate in terms of what our staff time is used and what we ought to be doing, which in my view is, we are there to serve the people of the village, to provide facilities, to provide activities, to provide the services that we have the remit for and the ability to provide. And in order to do that properly, in the current situation, we do need adequate staffing. And if we don't have additional staffing, then something will probably have to go during the course of the year. I think.
Yeah.
So I think that's, yeah. And as far as I know, well, no, stop there. Thank you.
John?
Well, partly to echo what Sarah said, I think we have been very careful in preparing the budget. I know the admin staff have done a lot of work on it, and so have we. And I just think the capital projects, the money taken to pay for some of the capital projects has to be spent. There is an issue obviously there's an issue in the car park that has to be done. The roof, we're looking to put in solar panels on this roof to save the electricity bill, some of the electricity bill ongoing, but to do that we have to mend the roof, so that has to be done. Now these are things that are only going to be done every 20, 30, 40 years, so these are one-off things. There's an issue down at the playing field on Cardbridge that needs doing, otherwise we'll have to close the playground. I think that's about £14,000 needs to be spent on the steps and safety measures down there, and that's our playground. We're responsible for that. We have to do that. So these one-off things that have to be spent can comfortably come out of the reserve, and as long as we keep enough in the reserve as required by the auditors to be able to run the council for 6 to 9 months, which we have, because you never know what's going to happen with income streams. Looking forward, we've got over a very difficult period this last couple of years when we, for some part of it, we've had a change of clerk, we've had different clerks in, we've not had enough time really to prepare, as much time as we'd like to prepare this budget, and I think you've done a fantastic job doing that over the last few months. So I think we can look forward, we're looking forward to a new income stream when we get the Quarries Community Centre open. We'll have another income stream there. I know there'll be on costs with that, but we've covered that. I think we've done, the councillors and staff have done a really good job in covering all the things we need to do. I'll echo what Sarah said about that's already been passed. We're going to get an office tuning. The amount of work that the officers takes on is far exceeds what they're really paid to do. They do a lot more than they're paid to do, and I think an office junior, it's offering an opportunity to somebody to get involved in council work. We've already budgeted for it, so I think that's something we ought to go ahead with.
Thank you, John. Any other comments?
Just a quick question. So if we accept the proposal from the F&GP with all that expenditure from the reserves, how many months worth of expenditure are we covered for? That was a very badly worded question. It's coming out, I think it is making out to an extent. So is it like, so if we spend 35,000 from the reserves on the proposal, how many months are we covered by the reserves for?
So my understanding is that at the end,
I mean,
at the end of the year, assuming the budget is 100% kept and the projection is, we might get more income, so we might not get as much income as well. So you've got to factor in all possibilities. If COVID hits again, hopefully it doesn't, hopefully through that, but that plummeted like the budget in 2020, just for example. But also as part of the proposal, we will have running costs for 6 months. So that's like middle of because they say to have 3 months to a year, so it's like bang in the middle.
Can I just point out one of the income streams, weirdly, is the amount of money we get from the cemetery, and now that's something we can't predict, obviously. This is another pandemic or whatever, it's going to increase, but that is one of the big income streams. So there are things in the budget that are difficult, and you've got to take an average or a guess at it, really. So that is a complication.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. I think over the next year as well, we need to look at ways to get more revenue in, because still this community building and some of the others are still not back to pre-COVID levels as well in terms of the income that they're bringing in. So we've still got some work to do there, and I think the more Facebook posts about the spaces we've got, and that the Bracken Hill Centre, for example, is never used year to year, so that is just a cost to us at the minute. If we can get something to cover more of these costs, I think we can balance it. So the next year is going to be a very crucial year, and I think we will be looking at the budget, seeing how much it's tinkering, seeing which way it's sort of like going as well over the next year, probably more so than.
Can I just add something just to...
Of course,
on
yeah.
If that's okay. 6 months running cost is roughly just expenditure only, no income. So if we were in a COVID situation, we had 0 income.
Right.
So expenditure rate would be 164k. Worst case scenario, that's what we'll keep in general reserves as a 6 month buffer. It then allows us roughly, 130 from general reserves to allocate out to different things. So that would easily cover any proposed deficit in this budget. It would easily cover what we're tracking at the moment for overspend on the current budget. I've done, this has all got to go back through FNGP to actually earmark the exact figures for the area, but I've taken into consideration the office walls downstairs to open it up, the refurb that we need doing, the car park resurfacing the roof, the Ackworth Parish community running costs, the cemetery repairs that need to be done, the steps at Carbridge, potential gala. We don't know if we're going to go ahead with gala parade, but we've allowed for that as well. I've got to roughly, in just my mind, 120, so there's still 10k spare in that, but it has to go through FNGP anyway. That's just me doing quick checks.
So 10k on top of the 6 months anyway?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
Stephen?
Nothing's been mentioned about the amenity lab in the old holes in the back of the strata.
So we know more about the actual community building being handed over to us, so that is the land, because that still needs a lot of prep work to be done to make that, because it's got boulders in it and that sort of thing, and we said we weren't happy to take that on yet. We haven't been given a date yet as to when that's going to be handed over, so we don't know when that. So I see where you're coming from,
There
obviously.
is a lot of work to be done there because it's
Yes.
been looked after for a lot of years.
I mean, we're wanting Strata to do some work on it before they hand it over to us. We don't think that that's appropriate to be handed over at the moment. That's one of the recommendations.
That's sort of not going to be in this year's budget at all, or anything,
No,
not at all.
not yet. I mean, they've been handing over the community building for like the last 2 years, I think. So you'd have been. It's a difficult call, so no, the actual land, no, but the community building, we definitely know we're getting that very soon, so it's definitely in the budget.
Yeah, I suppose my comment crosses both items 6 and 7 from the FNGP meeting to kind of both the precept and the staff costs, which I know Susie's got the proposal on the precept. But maybe I've got the maths wrong a bit here, but from what I've given that 294k general reserves, there was a figure mentioned in the F&GP meeting, which I attended as a member of the public, that there was 124,000 for the projects, the general reserve earmarked, which on my maths leaves 170,000 less the 32 that we've got for general running stuff as from the reserves, actually brings it down to about 5 months at about 138,000, which is about 5 months reserves. And I have a concern there that where that then leaves us is in a year's time, we've only got, having run a deficit budget this year of about 1 month's worth. In a year's time, we're then in a situation that without any kind of special activities like we're looking at all this earmarking this year, we're actually in a situation where we would have to have us, given a similar deficit budget at the end of the year, we would be on the absolute minimum reserves. And then faced with the following year, a situation of being drastically short without an absolutely mammoth increase in the precept or a massive cut in staff activities or whatever to balance the budget. I come from a business background, and if I was looking at this kind of a forecast of income and reserves, income and expenditure in an organisation, with that much in reserves, I would be thinking, well, I'm going to be out of business in 18 months' time, so what can I do about it? So I suppose my real question is, what has been considered in terms of sustainability of budgets for this parish council for the 25-26 year onwards, because without understanding that, I find it very difficult to think that the budget, including increasing the headcount, overspending, not asking even for the money to cover the staff salaries, just seems completely unrealistic to me. You know, we've got district councils all over the country going out of business, you know, effectively going bust, and we look to be planning to do the same, which doesn't seem very sensible.
Do you mind if I add just a few of those points that I can?
Yeah, of
And then I'll
course.
pass it back.
Yeah.
So first of all, the figures that you've quoted, for the F&GP committee meeting, I have just popped some very broad figures in. So one of them, for example, was the roof. I put 35,000. In reality, the quotes that we've been getting in are more like 27, 28. So I've overinflated it to make sure we allow for enough to show the committee sort of that it needed reviewing, because they were just guesses. Since the F&G committee had gone away to prep for the next F&GP committee, where it's going to come back to with some more realistic figures, which is the ones I've quoted today, which I appreciate. No one's been privy to those of them right now, and they will go to F&GP because they're just costed a bit more accurately. The other thing that I'd just like to note is that if we have more than 12 months, and 12 months, even that is a push in general reserves, when we get audited, they will mark against it, because as a parish council, or I suppose town council as well, you shouldn't have more than 12 months reserve. It's seen actually as not best practice. And the third thing that I'd just like to add is the reason why we have so much in general reserves, the handover that I had from the previous work, so is that some of these items needed doing years ago. So for example, this roof really should have been looked at a couple of years back, which is why we keep having emergency repairs done to it. So in a time through COVID and things like that, where that's where the money really should have been being spent on the roof, that's why we've got such a stockpile in general reserves that we now need to allocate to the repairs, and that's why there's so many of them. So those are the elements that I can answer.
Yeah, my point isn't so much that I can accept those things we do at some point. It's that ongoing, you know, the fact that we're looking at the proposal is £32,000 worth of deficit coming from reserves, and in a year's time, if we're in kind of the same situation, we've got the same deficit again, and then the year after we've got no money, we can't budget because that wouldn't be legal.
But the budget's taken into consideration everything that this council...
So at some point...
Just hang on a second, if I could just... so the budget's taken into consideration everything that the council's committed to over the last year and previous years as well, that haven't necessarily been delivered. So that's what's in the budget. There's no 100... Like, for instance, as we mentioned, the Office Junior, for example, that's budgeted for a whole year, so that's starting from the 1st of April. There's no guarantee that cost will be in place by the 1st of April. It might be over 10 months, so there's a saving there. There will be some clawback on this. It's been, like Gemma said, overinflated to make sure that everything is covered as well. So I would say that it's probably above what the reality is. And again, we started doing this budget before January. We still have 3 months worth of figures to come in. We don't know what March's income is yet, because it hasn't happened. We've still got February to get through as well. So in terms of the actual figures, you are making a projection based on some things that you don't necessarily know. And the previous year as well, we did the budget with a step-in clerk as well, so they didn't know fully the figures. So I would say that we're basing the budget off of a year where we didn't have the full knowledge and everything on board. So this year we've gone forward as best we can. That's what I would say on that.
Sorry, I should the Office Junior proposal, it is only a 6-term, fixed-month contract. It's not a permanent position. It's to be reviewed after 6 months, because we are trying to streamline internally and improve processes already in place. So it might not be that the Office Junior is required for a long time, but there is certainly a lot of admin and a lot of backlog in the coming 12 months if we want to get to where we want to be. So I just thought it was important to call that out.
Yeah, and I think that part of the reason for increase, one of the reasons we want to increase the amount of staff we've got at the parish council is because certainly from the last 4 years that I served, the increase of workload that the office are doing has considerably increased when you take into consideration before 2019. So there is a need there to actually resource that. So it's about weighing up, do we wish to meet the demands of the residents of the parish or not as well? So there's a lot of balancing to do, and I believe that the budget meets the demands of what the parish needs as such.
I don't think any of us sitting here would have any problem with the general reserves being invested in capital projects. That's what it's there for. The concern is it being used for current expenses, and that's why I was suggesting that we be conservative around what, of going up to 7/8 of our preset being spent on salaries, which leaves very little for the predicted 242,000, say, of expenses just for running all of the buildings that we have and, all the other services that we provide.
Well, if I could say that, the council, the Local Government Association Council's Workbook on the local government finance does say, in times of austerity, it's tempting for the council to run down its reserves to maintain day-to-day spending. However, this is at best short-sighted and at worst disastrous. And from my mind, that's what we're proposing, given this budget and the precept that's been discussed.
Okay. So what I'm going to do then is I will take the motion of 10.1 then first.